This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is Monday, 10 July, and so we are ready to begin. Members of the board.
I can't really hear very well. I don't know if it's on.
Oh, it's on. Now we get feedback. So, so the members of the board, of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Bob Zisnia, Cindy Gibbons, myself, Hank Nussbaum, Sean Flynn, and Celia Waters. Okay. So, who is ever speaking for the appeal? Okay, so please come up, identify yourself.
Stand, sit.
Sit,
Sit.
wherever.
And there's a sign-in sheet.
Chris, I can't get onto the Wi-Fi.
It's used, there should be a guest Wi-Fi. Okay.
Okay, problem solved.
I mean, I read it 5 times. That's reference.
Do you want me to give a little preamble to this?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay.
So at least let's have the applicant identify herself, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Wendy Kriz. Do you need to turn this on or not?
No,
I think
it's
I'm
on.
loud enough. I'm Wendy Kriz. I'm the owner of Kriz Farm Ice Cream. My husband Timmy and I started it 3 years ago, and Timmy and his son Cody own the farm. And I don't know if you want me to keep going or if you want to do your thing.
I think they should present their case.
Okay.
Well, all right, however, that's fine. Chris, would you like to do a little?
Go for
You're
it.
Christine.
I'm Christine.
I'm Wendy. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Finally.
Okay, so go ahead, and then we'll have Chris do the next part.
So I had to write this out because I'm not good off the top of my head. As most of you know, we live on a horse farm in Bethany. We raise horses, among other farm animals. All the land available on the Kriz Farm property is used for haying. The hay gets mowed, tedded, raked, and baled to provide year-round nourishment for our animals. We came to a point where we realized we need to do more with the property to sustain the farm. That's what made us decide to begin the process of building and opening our ice cream shop. We've been working with the town of Bethany, Quinnipiac Valley Health Department, and the state of Connecticut for the last 5 years to build our ice cream shop on our farm. We worked with them all to be sure we met and continue to meet all rules and regulations. To date, we've met all of their expectations. We are just as willing to work with the town of Woodbridge to come to a compromise which will allow us to continue to draw new business to our ice cream shop and community. We collaborated with our neighbors in order to ensure we have their permission to put our directional signs on their private properties. We've had our signs on the Route 67 intersection for 3 years with no incident. On May 22nd, as you guys know, we received a letter dated May 17th from the Town of Woodbridge Land Use Enforcement Office. The subject of the letter was zoning violation, business signs at Bear Hill Road, Acorn Road, and Seymour Road. The official complaint is that we are advertising in Woodbridge for a Bethany-located business. Our property/farm abuts the Woodbridge town line. Literally, if you take one step, you're in Woodbridge from our property. The letter we received states that the town received numerous anonymous complaints about the large signs advertising Kriz ice cream. The letter also states that the signs appear to be located on Town of Woodbridge Road rights of way. At this time, you guys were requesting that we remove both the cited business signs by no later than Friday, May 26. Failure to do so by May 26 would result in a request to the Woodbridge Public Works Department to remove the signs, and/or further enforcement action will be taken. We made phone contact with the zoning commissioner on Thursday, May 25th, at which time she informed us that we could pay $75 and file an appeal, which we did, and that's why we're here now. The State of Connecticut Department of Transportation also received numerous anonymous complaints about the sign in question. Upon the state's investigation, they reported to us that the signs are in compliance with state regulations. Since we've opened Criz Farm Ice Cream, we've provided a destination for supporters, both local and people from out of state as a destination. Lots of local senior centers, senior care facilities, local camps, sports clubs, Jeep clubs, Amity students come to gather, visit, celebrate, and sometimes even grieve. In addition, we employ 13 young people from surrounding towns, including Woodbridge, Bethany, Orange, and Seymour. Our employees actually asked me to include their statement that every single time a new customer comes to the ice cream shop, they say, we found you in your ice cream store because of your signs on the Route 67 intersection. The signs are great. We've received incredible support from our friends, family, and customers in hopes of keeping the signs where they are so newcomers, newcomers know we are here and how to find us. We're proud of being new small business owners, bringing new life and business to the Amity community to help build our local business in a family-friendly, appealing, happy environment. The Criz family and Criz Farm have been part of the Woodbridge, Bethany, and Orange community for decades, of course shoeing horses, but also leasing Woodbridge property for years from the town of Woodbridge for farming to support and keep the farm life alive in the community. We hope that you can see a way to find exception to allow us to continue to draw new business to our ice cream shop. We thank you for your consideration, and we're definitely willing to work with you to do whatever we can to make it right.
So basically, I don't go running around town trying to find places that are in violation, but when I get complaints, I have to respond to them. So initially, when the complaint came in, I said, I'm not sure if it's on town property or on state property or where it is. So the state was contacted, and the state found that it was not on their property. So then it falls into my lap. So it's either then on town property, town road right-of-way, or it's on private property within the town. We have regulations regarding signage in the area. That part of town is a residential A district. And what that means is its primary use is for residences. There are signs that are allowed for non-residential uses, but they all relate back to uses which are on property located in the Residence A zone. So in this particular case, we have signs that are for a use which is not on the property where they are located. And so the bottom line is, it's not a use that's allowed under our zoning regulations. In point of fact, I just checked before I came here. We have the table that I'm citing from is table 4.6, signs permitted for non-residential uses in the A, B, and T3 zones. So the area that's adjacent, or where these signs are, is the residential A zone. None of the 5 signs which are listed fall under or allow the use of signage for properties which are other than the property on which the use is shown. So the bottom line that we have is that the signs that are there are not on property where the use occurs. There's no doubt that they are wayfaring signs, but under our regulations, which it's my duty to enforce, they are not signs which can be allowed to remain. In the beginning of our use section, it specifically says that all other uses are hereby prohibited unless specifically permitted elsewhere in these regulations. So the only section that we have in our regulations that applies to signage for non-residential uses in a residential zone is that table to which I referred. And there is no other section that allows this. So by default, because it's not allowed use, it's prohibited. So I have no way of varying these regulations on my own. I have to enforce what's here, and that's why the order was.
Just to confirm, you're referring to table 4.6?
I believe I'm referring to table 4.6. Yes, signs permitted for non-residential uses in the A, B, and T3 zones.
And your interpretation of this chart is that it does not allow for out-of-town signage?
it allows for signs for property which is located in town, i.e. on the property where they are located.
So I've reviewed this and I don't see that. Can you point to exactly which one of those 1 through 5 say that?
Right at the beginning, it says, signs permitted for non-residential uses in A, B, and T3 zones.
Right.
So that means uses which are occurring in the residential A, B, or T3 zones. Where the signs are located, the use is not located. The use, it doesn't matter that it's located in Bethany, is not on the property where the signs are located. In point of fact, there are 2 signs on 2 different corners.
So interpreting this, is that to say, if I have a business that I'm operating out of my residence and I put a sign there, that's the only sign that would be allowed there because it's my property and it's my business?
This section, when it was written, originally was trying to substantiate signage for churches and the school where they were non-residential uses within a residential district, and we didn't specifically allow them. So when the Town Planning and Zoning Commission wrote this section of the regulations, they were trying to accommodate signage for churches that are throughout the residential district in town, as well as the community school and the high school. Primarily, that's what they were focusing on. There are allowances for other signage. If you have a home office, you can have a sign for a home office.
I have to admit, I'm an attorney and I can't even interpret that from this. I still don't understand where it says non-residential use signs can't be signs from out of town. I understand it says non-residential uses, but I'm not sure why a private property can't have a sign from out of town.
But since we're asking questions, does the out of town even matter?
From my interpretation, which I checked with town council on before I wrote the letter, it has to apply to the property on which the sign is located. Because otherwise you could have signs sprouting up all over town for anything, as long as someone said that you could put a sign there.
But they,
In section 4.5 signage, section B, it says that to sell products permitted by these regulations to be produced on the premises in a residence district, which is visible and legal from a public street. So it's that's in 4.5B, applicability. So it's talking about produced on the site. So we have any number of farms in town which have signage for those things which they sell. We have the farm stand that's on Amity Road, he has signage out. We have a small farm stand on Center Road that has signage out. Massaro Farm periodically has signage out. We have the Vineyard, which is on Ford Road, which has signage out. And I note that the Vineyard, one of the things that was discussed when we first brought this up was, initially she said, well, we can take the signs down, we'll comply.
But I
then-
think the difference,
let
so
me
go ahead.
just finish.
Sure.
But then I got a call from a selectman, not of this town, who mentioned that they thought he was going to assist them in applying for signage from the state, either farming or agricultural thing, and that would take time. And so I said, the most time that I can give you under the regulations issuing an order is to have you come and submit an appeal of my decision. And it's an appeal of my decision. You know, I issued a decision, it is now before you to decide
Sure, yes, I
whether or
understand.
not I was erring in what I did or not.
And I think these regulations are quite confusing because I'm still grappling with this because you cite Massaro Farm and some of the other businesses, but are those zoned as residential
They're all
property?
in residential A property, yes.
Okay.
residential A.
So is it just a pattern and practice here? Because I still can't, I don't
This-
think the regulations specify it specifically.
This is the first sign that we've had in town for an out-of-town business that's on private property or a road right-of-way setback.
But just
But I'm
because
still
it's the first
confused with
one.
the out of town. I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
see
what
the
about,
difference.
so like, for example, there are numerous homes get remodeled, right? And those,
The contractor
contractors
can put
put
up
their
a
sign-
temporary sign, and that is covered in here.
but they're out of town. Their businesses
They
are.
can have a sign up while they're doing the work, advertising their business, and when the work is completed, that sign comes down. So they're allowed to have a lawn sign to do that.
Gotcha, okay.
But these are permanent signs. As testified, they've been up for 3 years. They sometimes change to advertise, tree sales or pumpkin rides or whatever. I'm not questioning the validity or, the wonderfulness of the product. It's just the
There's
regulation I
nothing-
have to
there's
deal
nothing
with.
to do with that. I mean, I don't think there's anything, it's the out of town reference. I'm still
Yeah, I'm
struggling-
still
Right,
having
yeah.
still
difficulty.
struggling.
So, I mean, even if you took away
I
the
don't
out
see
of,
it in there.
even if you took away the out-of-town part of it, the sign is not for the property on which it is located. Not
No,
yet,
you're not.
Yeah.
not yet. There will be
Yeah.
public comment, it is not yet.
So go ahead.
But we haven't had this in front of us.
Correct.
So this is the first time we're interpreting these regulations for a,
It's the first
Sign
time I've
of
issued a
out of
thing.
We
town.
don't have to.
right. And
But it's not, the sign's supposed to be at a place where the business is going on.
I don't see that in the regulation though. Point to the regulation where it says that.
It's referring to the A residential zone in Woodbridge. That's what these regulations are talking about. And if the business doesn't exist there. So I think that's,
But it doesn't say anywhere that the business has to exist on the property. It doesn't say that in here. Point to me where it says that.
I
It's,
agree with you.
it would be very simply in that first sentence where it says signs permitted for non-residential uses. And if you want to put in the word occurring in A, B, and T3 zones, that's the title of that section.
Right. But it's,
And this use is not occurring in an A, B, or T3 zone. It is occurring elsewhere.
okay.
Doesn't matter to
I
me.
see what you're saying. You're interpreting the title of this table,
Which tells you where those signs can occur.
but it doesn't say anything in that table about the use outside of those zones.
Because this table only applies to those
these are
zones.
Woodbridge regulations, so that's why it's mentioning these.
We can only regulate things in Woodbridge. I can't regulate
Right,
things
I
in-
know that, but we can regulate, we could have put in here clearly that on private property, you can't have signs advertising for out-of-town businesses, right? We could have
I
simply
don't-
wrote that, we
They
didn't.
could have written that, but I don't think
Instead, they
would.
put it in the title of a regulation that makes little to no sense.
It's what I gotta work with.
I don't know.
Well, but I think to put what's permitted that's what's permitted. Everything else is not. If you have to put everything that's not permitted in one of these things, it would be endless, and you'd still miss something.
But they do that, so they're setting a practice here where if they say things aren't permitted, they should say everything that's not permitted.
You can't put everything that's not
It's
permitted.
almost impossible.
But then
Because
why
some-
would they put certain things and not others?
Because the
Because-
things that are there are the things that are permitted. Everything else is not. I mean,
But they list things that aren't permitted. There are things in the regulation that are specifically not permitted.
okay.
So why did they not specifically not permit this?
I don't know. What did our town attorney say?
When I explained to him the order that I thought that I should be issuing, he said that I was correct.
Okay.
Can I
Yes.
Point of order, can I suggest that we have others
Sure,
present to
I'm done.
us?
Yep.
So we,
Well, I guess we're only
because are we
interested.
deliberating now, or?
Well, I think that the only other presentation is not on, as Chris said, the goodness or the badness or the whatever of ice cream or Chris Farms, but rather on the law. And so unless someone has some interpretation of the law, all the positive discussion is interesting and fascinating, but not pertinent.
Well, I was hoping to hear the negative of people who, what's the motivation behind the people that made these complaints? Is anybody here that made the complaint?
I don't believe so.
I don't
But
think.
it was pure, if you want to know, it was that there were 2 large signs at the intersection.
I go to the dump every week like clockwork, and those signs have they don't obstruct any view, they don't.
That's your opinion.
I-
and
no, I-
other-
I-
And
yeah, I
other
understand,
residents in
yeah.
town had a different opinion. And when I receive a complaint,
Oh,
and I look
yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
regs, I have to go based
Oh,
on what
yeah.
the regs say, conferring with town council
Mhm.
to make sure that I'm not that far off bat,
So
and then do something.
I think my concern here is we're interpreting the law based on the title of this chart. And I think there is Connecticut case law that says you can't interpret statutory law or code based on the title of that section. You have to specifically have the regulation written out. Just because it's the title of the chart, it's not convincing to me.
And that's a discussion
Yeah.
that you guys
We have
have
to
and you
decide.
decide.
Yeah.
We could talk to our town attorney.
I mean, you don't have to make a decision this evening. If you want to have that deferred to town council for an opinion, you can do that too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that that's based on what you're saying, and Cindy had the same thought, that we should have a meeting with the town attorney and discuss that so that we can have an interpretation of what the law is. So I think that's a very sensible approach. So that, to me, is fine, but all this other discussion about the goodness, how wonderful, the fat content.
You're assuming that's what we're gonna all say.
No, I didn't say that. What I said was, if that's what some of the discussion is, what I said was, if it's about the law, then we will entertain it, is what I said.
But I
So-
think
so-
everybody came here, I think they should have an opportunity to at least speak about it, if that's what they wanna do. It's a
If, given the
public forum.
quantity of people that you have in the room, I might suggest to you that when planning and zoning has a hearing and there's a lot of people, that what they do is they say everybody can have a say. They give a max of 3 minutes. And then if you're gonna agree with someone else, what someone else said, that you can come sign in and say, I agree with former statements regarding, and then that way there's a record of what's been said, and whatnot.
Sure.
Everybody gets a chance to speak, but it gives a time frame to it so that people who are here, who came out for a meeting, have
Okay.
the opportunity to
support
say
that.
something.
This is not
So
our
I'm just
meeting, this is
mentioning,
the-
because that's not something, you don't commonly have a crowd of people in here.
Okay, then let's do
Right,
that,
but-
and we'll do it just as you suggest. Time everyone to 3 minutes, they'll sign in, give their name, 3 minutes, done.
Can I just ask, can you give me a copy of the written record that you, or the thing that you, no, your letter that you read?
Oh,
And then I can scan and give it back to you, but then that way I can edit it. So you're gonna need to sit down so somebody else can sit there and comment.
oh, here, so you can sign in here, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah, I got 3 minutes.
Okay.
Hi, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. My name is Bobby Fantarella. I own the business Elm City Trailer on Amity Road. I've been there for 6 years, and it's funny because I came before this board when I was going to open up, and some same, some different. I tried to move into a building that was vacant for 7 years and got such a hard time about it, and I found it was just so funny on small town politics how it can be. But neither here nor there. I am here to say my piece in favor of the ice cream stand. I read the complaint in the issue, and I've read, well, I tried to read the town's regulations, which might needed some updated language, and thank you for saying that, because I read that thing over and over, and just, it made no sense to me. It was so gray, it didn't make any sense at all. I also ran a farm stand in Orange for years as a hobby farm, and you know, it's hard. I mean, it's hard enough to run a small town farm in a small town with limited space, if you will. So I understand the rules are in place for reasons, although I do find it funny after 3 years, all of a sudden there's a problem. Regardless of that, people who live in the local communities, Orange, Woodbridge, and Bethany, tend to enjoy the farm. So I won't sit here and pull all the heartstrings about that and how good it is for the town, Orange, Woodbridge, and Bethany, and how much, hey, the Chris Farm has actually been haying in Woodbridge for years, and they help a lot of us. And I will say, though, the way that language is written, and the signage for agriculture and farms is different than most businesses. And there's a lot of exemptions for farm and agriculture. And for very good reasons. There's not a lot of farms left, and they're trying to not disappear, because most people want to see them. So I was happy they were trying to do it so they could increase it without selling off the land and developing it. And I laugh because I think the only people that would probably complain wouldn't put their name on it because they're either jealous or miserable. And fortunately for us, they're the minority. So now I realize the Chris Farm is in Bethany, but it is in Woodbridge Blind, and Woodbridge is lucky to have this place. So back to the exemptions. If there is not a sign exemption for farms and agriculture already in place in the town of Woodbridge, I say it's just time to make that change. I mean, why couldn't you? It's a small farm. It's not like they're going to keep going. I understand you don't want every business there, but how about a
2.5 minutes.
Yep. How about an exemption that says it's farm and agriculture can advertise when a neighbor wants to help out a neighbor? So anyway, I think you should help the local farm and make that change. It's unclear language, and it could very easily be changed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I need one.
Someone up here will have to share.
Thanks.
Joe Dye, 60 Richard Sweet Drive, Woodbridge. I only have 3 minutes, so, yeah, cut to the chase. So Celia, I agree with you totally in terms of how the sign regulations are written and interpreted, along with Bobby. So I'll just say that convoluted would be a word I would use. Legally clear as mud in the vernacular in terms of signage that's allowed and disallowed. But one of the problems with enforcing things, perhaps only when you get complaints, is we get selective enforcement. And we get enforcement that's unfair, unreasonable, and capricious. And I think that's what we're looking at here, because the first picture that I passed up, you'll see, number 1, is a picture of the Chris sign and a big picture of Woodhaven Country Club. That sign's been there for, I've been in Woodbridge for, I don't know, 60 years, and that sign or something like it's been there for the whole time.
And is that?
I understand grandfathering, that's not where I'm going with this, because I see the grandfather language in the.
It may or may not be on the
in
state
regs.
highway.
And maybe what?
It may or may not be on the state highway setback.
Oh, I think it is, and I think it's probably in the town also on Bear Hill Road. May not be, but it's definitely in the state. But nonetheless, it's in Woodbridge, And it's on a piece of property not owned by the people who own Woodhaven Country Club. And it advertises for a business in Bethany. So I don't see the difference between that sign and the Chris sign. Other than maybe the Chris sign is in the right of way, maybe it's not. I don't know. Chris, we will have to decide that.
Well, no, actually, I wouldn't. I would have the State Highway Department come out
They've already been out there.
to determine where that sign is.
Not that one. I'm talking about the Chris sign. I'm not even sure the Chris sign is in the right of way. But if it is, that's an easy fix. You move it out. You just move it out of the way.
And then it's
But
not
that's
under my
not my, the
jurisdiction.
main point is, we have selective enforcement going on here. And I won't go so far as 14th Amendment and equal protection of the laws, but what are we doing here? Why are we picking on these folks?
2.5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I'll be a little longer. The next sign is a tasting room open for Savino Vineyards. That's on Rimmon Road in the corner of Ford and Rimmon Road, in the town right away. Why is it there? It's an illegal sign. Number 3 is New Yoga Studio. This is as you pull into Fitzgerald Fields. where
Okay,
the
your
dog-
3 minutes are up.
That's where that one is, right? Illegal sign.
Your 3 minutes are up.
The
Please
rest
be
of them you
courteous
can
to
look
everyone
through,
else.
you can look through, and they're all illegal signs, including the ones that are allowed, which are the contractor signs.
Your time
because
is up.
most of
Please
those
be courteous to
contractors
everyone
don't
else.
pull
I'm his
them down.
wife. I'll give
You
him
know-
my 3 minutes.
No, it's okay.
I'll
Just sit.
sign in right after he's done.
Well, then you can continue.
So you can look at all those signs, they're all illegal, including the pictures I didn't have, which are the signs for the Realtor for sale signs, which are allowed by regulation, but not in the town right away. And if you look at them all, they're 3 or 4 feet from the roads, within the right of way. Those are also illegal signs. So if we're going to interpret this convoluted regulation, let's do it for everybody. Or more importantly, let's work with these folks and make a reasonable change to these regulations where they can have signage to run their business. My 3 minutes are up.
Don't worry there, it's hard, wait, you may have to lift me to get me out of foot surgery this year, so we'll see. I sit here tonight not as you might think as the first selectman of Orange, but I sit here as a person who's been directly involved in agriculture for more than 50 of my 64 years. Many towns, they have agriculture farms listed as a non-conforming pre-existing use in a residential zone. You don't seem to have that in your regulations for some reason, which is your choice. But the farm was there before the houses, well, except for those houses on those corners, but it's a pre-existing, non-conforming within your area. The state of Connecticut, which I sat on the State Preservation Advisory Board for 9 years and 7.5 as the chairman, with a $65 million budget to preserve open space in the state of Connecticut. We worked very hard, and most years we preserved between 12 and 16 farms per year by buying development rights. But it is much easier if you can work with farm families and get them to preserve the farm themselves by continuing to operate and make it viable than it is for the state of Connecticut to bond money to buy development rights. I have a very strong mental interest in a farm that's part in Woodbridge and part in Derby. That was preserved by the state of Connecticut. That farm has gone from an idle farm to a very active farm, which many of you in Woodbridge and surrounding towns seem to enjoy. It's the same story with the Chris Farm, but I'm trying to understand one part of this where it said that they can't have the signs in Woodbridge because the farm is in Bethany. Is that part of what we're saying here tonight? Because that in itself could violate civil liberties, the freedom of speech law right there, when you're going to limit it on that base because the farm is, I don't know, 600-800 feet from the boundary line. So I'm not quite sure if that was part of the issue of why this sign was chosen. And I find it unfortunate that the Crises and others that represent them and all have not seen a document stating who put in the complaints. Generally, you as a commission should be asking to see the complaint.
2.5 minutes.
Very good. See the complaint and ask what the basis of it was. It shouldn't be up to Christine to have to run cover for somebody who wants to put in a complaint. I urge you to think about that. I urge you to think about the sign regulations for agriculture. We have a dwindling number of valuable farmland acreages, especially in southern Connecticut, and this just could possibly create another in that direction. But you have a lot of questions there as far as freedom of speech to me, the sign locations. Would you rather have that nice looking ice
Time's
cream
up.
signs, or would you rather have a $1,400 signs from the Department of Agriculture, which you can't stop, those big brown broad ones that they'll pound in out in front of that house and across the street in there, and those you can get too. Take a look at it and decide which one you rather have, the friendly, family, colorful one, or the state's generic sign, because either way there'll be a sign there. So it's your choice as to how you want to interpret the regulations. Thank you. Made it. Mr. Chairman, that's the first smile I've seen out of you, getting out of the chair.
Well, we were worried, you know?
Don't ever learn. I'll give you another 3 minutes though.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Colleen Colbert. I'm at 265 Seymour Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut. I am the homeowner of the farm that has the sign on her property. I've been there for 15 years. I've also been a farm who has received anonymous complaints in the past. And it is really capricious, in my opinion, to have an anonymous complaint and not know where it's coming from or what the reason is. I am in total support of the Chris Farm having a sign on my property. I love the farming community. My property is almost 4 acres. It is incredibly hard to operate as a single parent on a small farm property. I put in a lot of work and I work full time. I know how hard it is, and yet with a passion and a drive, I support the image that Woodbridge is, and what I believe is trying to develop is a sense of community, a sense of farming history that we have, and the support of it. I make that comment and I fully support your interest in trying to put a sign there. I also have a painting of what was done by Joseph Corrali of the Woodhaven, do you know Woodhaven? The Woodhaven sign. I purchased it from a physician who had purchased it in the 70s. It was on the phone book, and it is my home, within my home, with the sign dating back to 1970 of the Woodhaven sign. So it's been there as long as I've been there and longer. So please consider all the comments that were made. There's a deep love for the community to act as a community and to look at it in a way that supports each other. Thank you.
everyone. My name's Kyle Smith. My family and I own the what used to be the old Ace Begonias, which has been a staple of this community, I think, for a number of years. So that's 229 Seymour Road, right down from the Chris location. We also recently purchased 259 Seymour Road, which was previously owned by Chris Scolos, another farm that's been in this area for a long time. So in total, I want to say it's like 24 and a half, 25 acres. We've got these same anonymous letters saying that our signs have to be taken down by X amount of time. We did that. We talked to some other people. We've even pulled our signs like fit with outside of the offset for the state, which is I think 15 foot. So we were well within our private property. And there's signs that are for our farm and nursery. And I think originally Chris had a sign on my property right where, as Joe Dice showed you guys earlier, the Woodhaven sign's been for like 60 years or so. We thought we were gonna be putting our sign up there back in like 2021, the spring of 21. So I had reached out to Chris's son, Cody, and asked him that, hey, you could move your sign. We're gonna do something for our property here. We ended up investing most of our time and efforts into the nursery and built that out. And we haven't done a whole lot with 259. So really, I'm just here to introduce myself, to, agree with them that it seems to be a very selective process. As you drive through town, all you do is see signs well within, feet off the road. I don't think their signs obstruct anything. I'm also here to say, now that it's gotten to this, would it change anything if I say, as the owner of 259 Seymour Road, they can put a sign back on my property where it was
2.5 minutes.
originally? I'm sorry, what's that?
2.5 minutes.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a compromise here as well. I'm not here to steal their time. I'm here in support of them, and we're kind of in the same boat as them. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? And is anyone here to oppose it?
Hi, my name is Fred Blum. I live at 3A Cornhill Road in Woodbridge. I don't have 3 minutes to talk, but I would say I drive by them signs. They don't bother anybody. I rarely even see them any. They're tucked away in it. It's well done with good taste. I don't see a big issue, and I live right on that road. So, I mean, if you could find a way to help them out so they can stay, it's best for everybody. Thank you.
My name is Wynn Barrett, 1 Davis Road. I live in Woodbridge. I think it's important to understand that the regulation, the impact on the school system, since Bethany is a sister town. And if this farm were to break up, then there would be an added burden on the school system both in the junior high budget and also the Amity High School budget. So from that perspective, with regards to farm, I think it's very important to consider that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we will close the public comment. Closed. So we can discuss it. I think Cindy
If- are-
and.
Are you closing the hearing?
No,
or-
just with the public comment component.
Okay. That's
So,
fine.
so we're gonna discuss it, but I was gonna suggest that following Celia and Cindy's suggestion of us meeting with the town lawyer, I think is a sensible next step.
I agree with that.
I'd like to also ask, Chris, you had said there were complaints, there was 2, right?
Mhm.
You have one and you can't locate
We
the other?
have no, our regulations do not require the filing of a hard complaint. And part of that is because people are concerned about people getting retaliation and whatnot. So the history, I've only been CEO for 3 years since Terry died. The history has always been, you receive a complaint, you go out, you look, you see if there's something there, and you go from there. And if there's nothing there, then you don't pursue anything. We don't drive around town trying to find things. This was not selective. I should say that very clearly. Some of the signs which were submitted can be explained for different things and whatnot, and I object to that. I'm talking that classification of my actions as a zoning enforcement officer. So, just saying, I don't live in Woodbridge. I happen to live in Bethany. And so, from that perspective, I have no axe to grind regarding Woodbridge.
Right, but as it relates to the question, so our
So-
regulation states we don't have to keep a hard copy documented
Our
complaint.
regulations do not require. Some towns have a specific policy. And so I've made a note to bring it to the Town Plan and Zoning Commission, because they're the ones that write the zoning regulations, including how the zoning enforcement officer has to act. And so I can bring that to them. But as it stands right now, in the zoning regulations themselves, there is no format that requires that to be done. Once it is submitted, and I mean, even if someone calls on the phone and they can state their name, you could be stating someone else's name, how would I know? So it's not something under FOI that we can report that way and even say. But if it's in writing, if it's a hard copy, whether it's an email or a letter, then those are public record, and I freely give them out because they are a public record and they're out there for the public to see. So I'm constrained by what I can do under FOI and not under FOI. But I'm also constrained by what the regulations don't say in terms of requiring a hard written complaint. So I've made a note in my minutes to bring that up. Some of the comments that you've heard tonight have been about changing regulations. You are the Zoning Board of Appeals. You do not formulate regulations. They are formulated by the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. And again, I've made notes to mention that to them so that they're not privy to what's going on this evening. And as I say, when this particular regulation was written, it was written because the prior sign regulations did not address any signage for schools and for churches in town. They were not thinking particularly about farms or businesses that might profit or not profit from having additional signage in a neighboring town. And so this is something that, again, can get brought to them. But again, I have to work with what's there.
Right,
can't.
but I think we had another issue with another regulation, right?
Right.
That we wanted to talk to planning and zoning about, and I think it's important that we talk to them as well.
And you're welcome to come talk to
Joint
me.
meeting, or because
Mhm.
we come across these
Yeah.
issues,
Mhm.
and you're right, we don't change the regs, we don't, but if we continue.
But you see where people are
And we need
coming
to
up
talk to
to
them.
you with issues that have been raised.
Mhm.
I mean, for a long time, you used to have the one with the second setback, front yard setback.
Right.
And they responded to that by getting rid of that. So, you know, they are open to listening, and whatnot. So, what can I tell you?
I have something to add and like another layer to what you were asking about the people who made the complaints. I mean, straight away I responded to you and I said I wanted to hear like the motivation behind these complaints, and we haven't heard that, and I think it's important to know. From another perspective, I wear another hat for our Economic Development Commission, and we try to help and support business in town, and I would argue in the community as well. I mean, one of the folks out here said, you know, Bethany and Woodbridge are sister towns. We share a high school. I mean, I feel like we're all, you know, part of a community. You know, I'm sure kids from all over worked at the ice cream place. And from this EDC perspective, I mean, we want to be supportive of businesses, which is, I think, everyone in our town should be aware that we need to be supportive of businesses, because that's something that we strongly need to do to help all of our residents. And I was hoping that I could point that out to the people who filed the complaints to say, like, hey, let's be supportive of businesses in town and in our neighboring towns as well. But I didn't have an opportunity to say that because they were anonymous complaints. So that's just something I wanted to share.
Okay.
We clearly have other signs in town that are in violation of the
I will
regulation.
look at all the pictures and I will go through them, and
I'm not saying these pictures, but this, right, there has to be. I mean, we all drive by them every day.
it
So I think
depends
we have
on
to be
what's,
fair.
it depends on what's out there.
So I think what we've uncovered is that this is something that we need to dig into
Correct.
and right?
No, that's fine, that's what we said.
Yeah.
So I think how do we go forward in terms of setting up
So,
a meeting with the town attorney?
I think the cleanest way to do it is to continue your hearing to a future meeting, so that it's officially on the record. You know, it's not an ex parte communication or an executive committee, that it's whatever discussion is held. I can't, you know, I'll ask town council if he'll come to your meeting, or, you know, he may want to respond in writing. I don't know how he's going to want to do that. But, you know, if you can help formulate what the question is to send to him, then we can do it that way. And I would continue the hearing to allow for receipt of that, so that it's part of the record that you have, since that's something that you're looking at to have within the record. You don't have a regularly scheduled meeting until September. And under state statute, you only have 35 days to continue your hearing. So I would, I guess, ask you if you would like to have a special meeting in August to give a little bit of time for town council to respond. And if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to do it for like the second, you know, continue with your normal setup of the second Monday in the month.
I think it's an important enough discussion that I would be fine with having an additional meeting, a special meeting. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Yeah, we can't go beyond the 30-something days.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, so I think
Do
it's,
we need to make a motion for that?
To be official,
Sure.
because
I
I
make
have
a-
no idea where
I make
this
a
is
motion
gonna
we
go. I
have
mean, there's
special
been a
meeting
lot
in
of,
August.
And
okay,
we continue, we keep
What?
this hearing open.
you would just move to continue the hearing to whatever, I don't have my phone on me, so I don't know what the second Monday in
I can find
August
out.
is.
This is good for timing and
Ah,
calendars, I
there
know.
you go.
Just have a procedural question.
Yeah, Mr. Mazzoli has a.
So it's the second Monday in August, correct?
Yeah,
14.
What were you gonna say, Joe?
Mike, I just have a question. The question is, will the hearing be kept open for public input as well, since you're going to continue it and have input from Attorney Weiner? I would hope that the other side would, and if you could leave the hearing open till like December 26th would be perfect.
Unfortunately,
I don't think so. Nice try.
they
though.
don't have that time frame.
No, really, it was excellent, but no. We'll do it on the 14th of August.
So you won't keep it open to the public?
No, we can keep it open.
Well, that's the part I wanted to know.
Well, not, but you also threw in
Well, I'm
December.
doing an extra kicker there, just.
No, well, yeah, and so did I. So we're even. So we'll do it on August 14th.
Is there a motion on that?
Oh, let's,
I made the
Second.
motion. And
Second.
so-
we have a second, Celia. All in
Thank you, sir.
favor? Okay, so it's unanimous?
Okay. So I'll get this room and
Okay.
do
that'd
what
be
we
great.
have to do.
So we could adjourn and stay and formulate our questions, right, for the attorney tonight?
Well, you've now pushed off your hearing, so you're done with that part. So if you want to sit down right now and draft what the question is, or we can, if somebody wants to take the lead on it, I don't think it should be me, because it's not my question.
Right.
So if you want to do it and then send it to me, then I can just send it out to all of you to review and make sure that it represents what you want. And then when you all concur, I will send it to town council.
Okay,
I mean, I don't know that you want to do it on the fly right now or not. You may want to
right.
study it a little bit more before you
Yes.
write it.
I'm okay either way.
Yeah, it's just about that specific question about that language.
It's fresh.
Yeah, I say we hop on it now and just knock it out.
Okay.
Okay,
Then whatever you choose to do.
that's fine. So,
So just so you know, they've closed the hearing for tonight.
Town attorney,
They've
so
continued it to
minor.
August 14th. I will try to get this room, I'll find out, we'll see. And in the interim, we're gonna send something off to town council to try to get some legal opinion back from him. They will receive that back. You are invited to come again and speak, probably for 3 minutes if the whole room is full again. And we'll go from there.
And nothing's happening.
So you're
as
welcome
far
to
as
stay.
people
It's still a public meeting, but
no,
at this
no,
point,
because by continuing,
no clapping, no
it
nothing.
allows
Let them
to
do their thing.
continue it, so, yeah.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you very much. Email you, because I've got some notes on it I want to.
No, that's fine. I just want to have it in the file since you read the whole thing. Perfect. You want something to write on?
The language is ambiguous, and I think it can be interpreted in multiple ways. And I think
Thank you.
of the party that did not draft these resolutions. And there's nothing in the law that specifically says that.
We also have to take an opportunity since we have it.
Yeah.
To identify any things that we feel.
That they're relying on is the title of the table.
If you guys can take,
6.
not to kick you out, but they're still recording and they're still talking, so if you can take it outside,
How they're interpreting
that would be appreciated.
council is that there can only be signs permitted for non-residential use. See, I still read it how I read it. I see this says signs permitted for non-residential use, which is a non-residential use sign, which is Chris's farm, is non-residential use farm, in A, B, and T3 zones. So that's telling me what they can do or not do with a non-residential usage sign. How they're interpreting it is that signs permitted for non-residential use as in the residence itself, not the sign itself. I read it as the sign usage, not the premise usage.
And they got
Because-
permission, so that was the other thing I got confused.
Yeah.
If you think about it, they got permission.
They got permission. The sign to me is a non-residential sign.
Correct.
And these regulations are telling me how to regulate it in A, B, and T3 zones. There's nothing in here, in those regulations, that say it has to be within the town of Woodbridge.
And the other, I wanna make sure we address is
Yeah,
agriculture and
that would be
farms.
in there. That's it. You don't need them now
It-
anyway, we're
it-
doing it at 9.
It needs to be, the title
We're
needs to be
doing it at
clear.
9.
If they intended it to mean that it was only to apply to in-town signage, that's not,
In town, in town,
right. All it says is non-residential uses.
but
It says nothing
are the
about-
uses in town, or not in town?
Yeah, but it doesn't say non-residential uses for out-of-town businesses. It's just non-residential uses.
So, but the question, should it be written to apply
I-
just to businesses, to uses in town and?
Right, and I think maybe that was their intent, but it's not clear and it's ambiguous from this language. And we haven't had this issue before us, and I think for these reasons, either they need to be amended or we need to approve the sign. That's my opinion.
Why, I think if they want the regulations to be, applied to.
I think you need to
In-town
limit
uses.
your discussion to what you're writing to town council and not what your opinion on the decision on this would be. Because you're still in a public hearing and you would be formulating an opinion before the hearing closed. So I think with all due respect, that you
Sure.
need to limit it to what your decision in terms of what
We
you
need-
forward
Well,
to town
don't
council
share
is.
the decision.
The
until-
question
yeah.
is what the word usage in this title means.
You might have to write this.
I can formulate it.
Word, right.
It's
But
really
I'd
what
like
the
to not
word
to
usage
forget-
in this title means, and whether or not a regulation can be interpreted by its title. There's case law out there that says you can't enforce a law just simply by the title of the regulation.
Right, interpreted by title. I just wanna make sure we don't forget about addressing farm and agriculture versus
That's
not.
not what's before you at this
That's
point.
right. That's
Well-
zoning. We're not zoning. We, the zoning board of appeals, we only get to appeal the law that exists.
No, but we're suggesting change in the wording.
No,
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 we're
you're
not.
asking for an interpretation
Of what the
from
law
town
is.
council based on the concern that Celia raised
Right.
about how it's phrased and whether or not there was an error in how it was interpreted to mean the property that it's located. It has nothing to do with anything else right now.
Right, but
It's a
certainly what
very
you're saying.
narrow, that's a separate thing that
It's a
was
separate
raised.
issue
No,
that
right,
we can't
but-
forget about.
No, but I think you're right. That's something that we should be bringing to zoning and say, guys, this is what we found out in our meeting, so please could you therefore address it, because we
Right.
can't. So that,
So for this hearing.
Yeah, no,
we've got-
right.
All this is a question to council
Right,
so that you can either
yes.
you can decide one way or the other, and
Correct.
I don't have any axe to grind in this issue.
Right.
And
Well, we're not asking.
don't take anything I've said as
Oh, I'm
an
taking it
axe.
very personally.
Are you?
Sure.
Oh, don't.
She's kidding.
Okay.
Kidding, right?
No, I think we're all
Please
trying to
don't
do
take
the
it
right
personally.
thing. You
Took
know, that's
something
what-
else personal.
This is, what we're trying to do is the right thing, and,
Yeah.
and you
Well-
point out important stuff in terms of ambiguity, and that's why we wanna have, meet with town council. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I mean, I think ultimately, we're all trying to do the right thing,
Right.
period. And so, since we're really all have the same goal, I
Yeah.
don't have any negative thing, interpretation of it.
I have a question for you, Chris. Does this step that we're taking of asking Jerry a question to clarify the interpretation of this, does that need to precede the other item that we wanted to, like,
I
present
don't know what
to?
you're talking about.
It was the usage of the regulation, the zoning regulations of the corner lots. Are you talking
Yeah.
about that?
Well,
that's-
yeah, so we,
But that goes to zoning, that's not Jerry.
no,
He's asking, do we have to do
This
that
is,
first?
this is different.
No, this is.
I understand
is
they're
just
different, but can we do both things?
No.
No.
Okay,
They're
so
two
this
different
does,
places.
so this does precede everything else?
This-
Okay.
No, this
This
is
is
a
a question
standalone.
relative to this case.
Right.
The other things that you've talked about with 2 front yards and you've talked about with agricultural are zoning regulation things which do not go to him, they go to the zoning commission.
I understand that.
So you gotta keep them
Right,
separate.
but I think
Right.
what the difference is, in my mind, is we approved something and then said that we need to go to planning and zoning to change the regulations. Here, we're going to the attorney for the interpretation to make our decision.
You're going,
No, no.
you've raised a question
We raised a
about,
question of interpretation.
Before, it wasn't an interpretation
Not
of the
changing-
regulation, it was
no,
more
they're
based on the regulations we had.
Right.
Here,
Well, we
as
interpreted it.
Celia's pointed out, it's confusing, so we really want to see what the town attorney.
so
I
I
understand that.
I issued an order based on an interpretation of the regs. Celia has said she doesn't agree with that because of something. You're gonna go to town council and say, can you please clarify one way or the other which one is correct?
I do want to stress though, just because council gives us an opinion does not mean we have to use that opinion in our decision for
No.
ruling. So if he tells me that this is not ambiguous, does not mean I have to agree with that.
No,
No.
but you can, you can
Very clear.
get an
Right.
opinion.
Yes.
Which is why I want to be totally neutral in this thing and not have anything to say in terms of how the question is formulated, because that's me asking a question about something that I wrote that's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I can put those questions together. They're going to be very simple and quick. I think we have 3 questions.
And then
Specifically,
if you
broadest
forward
one,
them to
where in the
me-
regulations it says this,
Correct.
what this language in the title means,
Means.
and what the term use means, and whether or not regulations can be enforced by the title.
Okay.
Which you had stated before that you
Yeah.
had seen it.
Yes.
So
I know, I can't recall it in Connecticut. It might have been Connecticut, but I know in other states you cannot do that.
And then based on the attorney's interpretation, we may have more work to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you can write it,
Yeah.
I'll send it out to the crew just
Sure.
to have them all on board, and then I'll send it to Jerry and CC all of you on it so
Sure.
that when he responds, it's gonna come to you. I want it as transparent as
Yes,
possible.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
And he's normally the one that reviews the regulations,
No,
obviously.
he's town council.
Right.
He's the only legal counsel we got. And sometimes what he'll do is on other questions that we've had sometimes with the land use agencies, he may or may not defer to
Right.
another counsel who may be more conversant with that aspect of the question. So like,
That's kind of my question.
Yeah.
Would he go out and to another resource if he
he
needs
could,
to?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think, bond counsel is bond counsel.
Correct.
When they have bond questions, they go to them. And
Yeah, it makes sense.
so I can't guarantee that the response will come from him, but it will go through
That's fine.
him to whomever he, whatever. And we'll go
So
from
the
there.
chain of events are, it goes to him before the public hearing in August?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
That's
whole
the whole
purpose
point.
of having the
All right.
public hearing,
I just want to make sure.
Okay.
which
I
is
knew
why
that. I knew
we
that.
want to try to get this question
That's right.
out, is to give him, in a sense, as
Well,
much time as he
to get the
can
answers, so
to
we-
respond,
absolutely.
because I don't know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's on vacation.
Yeah, summertime's a hard
Right.
time.
Well, we have a perspective or a tentative date. If there's a problem for committee members or town council, then we can move it.
Can all of you make it at this point
Yeah.
on that date?
Yeah, I work all year long, I don't get
I
summers
don't know,
off.
I have to check with.
I mean, it'd be nice if we all could be, because we were
Yes,
here.
right, right,
I
Yeah.
have to
For the-
check.
I'm around.
I'll make sure I'm not here.
Okay.
You have
Well, I'm
to.
gonna put it on my calendar as a tentative date, so I don't forget and take a day off.
And I'll just, there's normally no meetings in August
Right,
for the
right,
most
right.
part, so we should be able to use this room, but I'll confirm it.
Okay.
August 14th.
And other than that, you still have minutes to approve.
Yep.
No. That's here, right? Okay. I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Excellent.
Both sets?
Yes,
Sean's
Oh,
a
yeah.
he's a fast reader.
I read them
I
all.
got them before. Two at once?
Yes.
Yes, both, I make a motion.
Okay. All in
And-
favor?
And that was my second.
Okay. It was unanimous.
One quick thing before I forget. Town Plan and Zoning Commission has contacted Attorney Mark Brantz, who specializes in affordable, well, one of the things he talks about is affordable housing. So they've tentatively scheduled, another training session, on October 30th, which is not Halloween, here in the evening. So I'm not asking you to respond right now, but I'll send you an email, and if you can double check your calendars to see if you might be available. So this would cover, that aspect, which is a mandatory aspect of the training that you're supposed to take, this year.
And that will be the 4 hours.
We can get him to do an hour and a half, and then
We'll be good.
We'll be done.
Okay, that sounds good
It
to
is
me.
mischief night, though.
I'm sorry?
It's not Halloween,
Are you
but
going
it's
out?
mischief night.
Are you planning
Could be
that night?
mischief night, yeah.
I can't say.
So I'll send you an email just to remind you of that date, and if you can get back to me so I can get back to
There's a secret
Kathy Hunter,
society.
who's trying to schedule that. And then that way she can confirm it, we don't lose him.
Okay. Okay.
And that's all I
Thank
got
you.
at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, no
All
problem.
right, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, fantastic. Meeting ends at 8:13.
8:13.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.